All right, peace to the family. Peace to the peace to the family. First thing I want to do is shout out what's this guy's name? I want to shout out Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters. Ralph Smart, listen, if you really want to come clean and come out the closet, just let everybody, just subscribe to the channel and start liking the videos, brother. There's no reason for you to hide. Okay? If y'all don't know, maybe y'all don't watch his channel, really big YouTuber globally. He has become the latest in the group of Dr. Inky Swagger Jackers. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and take a bow, ladies and gentlemen. Remember when I started saying it's time for the intellectuals to come out the closet. Well, Ralph Smart, Infinite Waters, has taken upon himself to go ahead and do a series of videos off of that, off of that little bit of drip there, little swag, little drip. So shout out to Ralph and the Infinite Waters. What are they called? The Deep Divers. Shout out to them. Man, let's go. Listen, we got to get busy today. You know what I'm saying? Today is a special day. I feel especially excited. Wait a minute. Let me get my life together. I don't know. Oh, here we go. I knew I brung it. I knew I brung it. I've been walking around with these. Amazon must have heard me talking greasy about them. And this is the fastest shipping ever that I got on books. I literally ordered the Atum Primordial Wave or Primordial Mound book and the Memory Bank book and got them the next day. That was crazy. That never happens. So shout out to Jeff Bezos. I feel like Jeff Bezos might be involved with, you know what I'm saying? Jeff Bezos might be watching me, like, you know what I'm saying? He might be in the private jet, like, you know what? I like that guy right there. He has potential. So I was super excited. Because I didn't think that I was going to actually have my actual copy. This is like one of my favorite book covers. Me and Aubrey was going back and forth on the best book cover that I ever did. And the best book covers that I ever did, the top 3, we decided is the Memory Book, the Memory Bank, The Legend of Wuxia, and of course, the classic Eat Right for Your Haplotype. So I don't know what y'all think of the best covers. But that's what we narrowed down in the house. And then, there was an honorable mention for the Medicine book because it's got that genius. This book right here, this Medicine book, smells like genius. Like when you get this book delivered to you, it smells like genius. This is a geniusy type of. So, but I like this book. I'm especially partial to the book cover, to what we're doing in the book, So we had kind of like an emotional introduction to the book. We kind of went through, you know, the bioelectricity to kind of set the stage, right? And some people may not have totally got the connection. So if you didn't get the connection, let me help you out with the connection. Let me help you out with the connection. Your muscles, right? Your muscles are, with the exception of the heart, your muscles, your skeletal muscle is the most electrically active places in your body per se. Like, we're going to separate the head from the body. These are the most electrically active places in your body. Why? Because of how dense they are in terms of mitochondria and glycogen, and you know what their purpose is. They're literally like power generators, right? But you got to keep in mind, the average muscle cell has 2,000 mitochondria, right? 2,000. The average neuron has 2 million. 2 million mitochondria. So think about these numbers. Think about these numbers. When they talk about how many neurons your brain is composed, you got estimates from 80 billion to 100 billion. So you got to multiply 100 billion times 2 million. Do you understand the math? You got to multiply 100 billion times 2 million. That's the kind of. So if we're not having, if I didn't lay the framework of bioelectricity, if we didn't do a bioelectricity book first, right? And we didn't spend time on what's valuable in life and some of those things, and have, you know, not necessarily a science conversation, but a passionate conversation about the study, right? I would have been doing this thing a disservice, because you got to get the whole point of comedic science. This is comedic naturopathy. The most important thing in the entire universe, the most advanced technology, the most revered thing on earth in Kemet was the human body. The human body. The tangible, physical manifestation of all of the universal powers. The stars, the whatever you can think of. And even modern science. Whatever you can think of in modern science, from black holes to gravity to stars to whatever theoretical science, experimental science, prove it, all of those things manifest in the human body. The very minerals and nutrients that we have to eat every day, most of them come from stars. Right? So we have to really reset our focus, right? To have this conversation. We had to really just reset our whole focus. You know, we got to get into the mindset, almost like a monopoly type of mindset. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even think young folks can understand that. Yeah, young folks, you can't understand that. You got to be at least 40 years old. This grown folks business right here. This grown folks business. You got to be at least between 40 and 60 years old to understand, like, the first time you played Monopoly. Like, when you first played Monopoly, the first, like, yeah. Because when you first got a chance to play Monopoly, you really thought you were doing something. Like, it was bigger than the game. Like, it was bigger than the game. It was, you know, this is Monopoly right here. Like, this is serious business, right? And it was nothing more than a game. It was just a game, right? So in that vein of value. We have economics, mnemonics. Economics, mnemonics, right? If Warren Buffett was a health team. Now, I know y'all looking at Warren Buffett, right? His last name is literally Buffett, like buffet. And he's made hundreds of billions of dollars selling food. Like how crazy, like what are the odds? I wonder if the odds on that are higher than the most viral supplement dealers on the internet, both being named Brian Johnson. I wonder what the odds would, like if we could calculate those odds, what would the odds be that the one of the richest men in the world, net worth between 100 billion, 200 billion somewhere, his last name is Buffett, and he made his money selling food, right? That's very interesting. My mind just, I notice my mind is hardwired to notice patterns. I'm like, that is very interesting right there, especially the way I see the world. That's him being very much in tune with his purpose in life. Even if his purpose in life was to give you cavities and diabetes and high blood pressure, he's very good at it, right? He's very good at it. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So, yeah, we got to get busy with the get busy, man. We got to get busy with the get busy. Have y'all been sharing our short videos? I want to know, have y'all been sharing the short videos? Have y'all been out there sharing the short videos? Because we got short videos now. Listen, we are in the short videos business now, okay? Dr. Hickey, the Melanin vs. Diabetes movement, we are officially in the short videos business now, okay? So for the last, I don't know how many years, everybody has been like pulling me to the side, like individually, like nobody else is doing it. Like, yo, check this out, bro. Listen. Telling you, the best way to grow the channel is, I think you got to get somebody to chop up the long videos. Like if you could make short little clips, man, you know what I'm saying? We could start sharing those to our social media pages, and then we could link it back to your page. And man, I think your page, when y'all watch these videos and y'all see the numbers, it'd be like 500 people watch the video or 600 or whatever. At least half of that, at least 300 people have individually like text me like, yo, Ink, listen, I got an idea for the channel. I think this would be good. Like, if you could just, if you could do some like short, no, don't shorten the videos though, because we like the long videos. It's just like if you could break them down like little short 1 minute clips, man, we could just share those. Because, people be on the go and, we could just. I went crazy yesterday. Listen, I went crazy yesterday. Yeah, I done figured out how to make me some clips. I went crazy yesterday. I put up like 20 clips. I thought YouTube was going to send me an email like, hey, slow it down, buddy. Yeah, we gotta get this thing going. All right, so sidebar, right? Somebody asked me about. So David Goggins made a comment. David Goggins, he did a special. He does his thing, and I said I'm the David Goggins / Usain Bolt of teaching. And so somebody hit me up and said, hey, do you agree with David Goggins? I said, what do you mean? I try to answer everybody in the Patreon as if we, so do you agree with David Goggins? I said, what do you mean? David Goggins said, black folks sink. I said, what do you mean black folks sink? Yeah, when black folks get in the water, in the pool, they're not as buoyant as white folks, and so they sink. And so I said, oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree 1,000% with David Goggins. Now, do I think that's an absolute science? No, right? That's not an absolute science because for the most part, there's not an absolute black people. There's not an absolute white people. Like most people now on earth are like mixed. There's a lot of white folks. There's a lot of black folks, euphemistically, whatever that means, right? But most people are mixed. You know what I'm saying? We start digging deep into the DNA. There's, it gets a little crazy, right? But technically, this is a well-known thing that black people tend to have more denser bones, more dense bones. And the more dense your bones are, the less your propensity to be able to float in the water, right? Now, if we're comparing that with like a big steel Navy boat, it kind of gets crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like 180-pound man, 100-ton, you know what I'm saying? Like, but what David Goggins was saying actually has some science to it because, X-ray, when you go get an X-ray, there is a stronger setting that they put it on typically for, black folks because of the bone density issues. So that is a real thing, right? I don't know how far David Goggins was going with it. I don't know the context of David Goggins, but in terms of there being differences in the races in terms of bone density, that is a real thing. That is a real thing. Okay, so respect my man David Goggins. He's done, 10,000 pull-ups in 12 hours, 14,000, 15,000 pull-ups. Listen, David Goggins, no matter how old he is, he has earned old man respect. Okay, he's earned elder respect. David Goggins could be my age. He's still got old man respect. Anybody that can hit 15,000 pull-ups, first of all, that's almost nosebleed insanity level concentration required to so respect David Goggins. Don't try to beat up David Goggins information wise. You know what I'm saying? The motivation is good. The motivation is powerful, right? We've got a lot of other people out there saying crazy stuff that we do need to beat up on. David Goggins is not one of them, right? Yeah. Because, I guess because we was, highlighting the crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, so what David Goggins, David Goggins out here saying, like, no. What David Goggins was saying had some scientific, so we gotta, we gotta put some respect on Goggins' name. All right. All right, so let's get to the memory bank. Let's get to the memory bank. Let's get to our economics, mnemonics, right? This might be a little bit of a trip, right? A little bit of a psyop. I don't know. The children are now using that term psyop. That's now a thing. somehow PSYOP has hit the middle schools and the high school, and so now the children are saying it, and so now they got me saying, Dad, that's a PSYOP. I'm like, what is it? What you know about a PSYOP? Y'all better relax throwing that word around. All right, so why is the God concept important? Why is the God concept important? All right, why is the God concept important? Remember, I got excited about getting 2 books today. 2 books. The Primordial Mound, right? The Atum Primordial Mound book. If you don't have these books, go to Amazon now. Add this to your cart, check out. Right? And the book cover of the Primordial Mound book is actually like I was doodling. Like literally not doodling. I was just like brainstorming on a piece of paper and, you know, like put the piece of paper down and I looked at it and I was like, oh, like I had one of those movie moments, you know, like when you see something that you already knew, but you see it like it just, you know, like it just, you know, like it just hit me with, you know, like I was like, got it. And so because I had one of those moments, I took a picture of the paper and then, you know, it became the cover of the book, right? But the reason this book is important, is because and I guess it's a prerequisite for our memory bank conversation, right? And it's literally right here on the cover. It's right here on the cover. If you can't see it, ha ha ha, go order yours and then right? But when we're talking about bioelectricity, when we're talking about life on this planet being electric, right? Life on this planet being electric. Life on this planet has a source. This planet, not the whole universe, not the whole like galaxy, or, you know, I know we got a lot of alien conspiracy theory. You know, it's a lot going on right now. Right? It's a lot going on right now. But I'm just talking about Earth, right? Tiamat. Right? Just talking about this planet here. Geb, right? The source of life on this planet comes through the sun. Comes through the sun. So this is actually the second recent book where we've kind of been expounding on this conversation, right? But it started with Yahweh is Aten, right? Yahweh is Aten. If you don't have this book, go to Amazon now, add it to your cart and check out. Yahweh is Aten, right? We're talking about how in those 2 books, right? In the Yahweh is Aten book, we talk about kind of like the ancient concepts of God being associated with the sun. And why that model isn't just mythological gobbledygook, but it's actually scientifically correct. Scientifically correct. When we get to the Atum and the primordial mound, our theory, our thesis is that the primordial mound is the electric signature of life, right? That we now identify, like you go to the hospital, they check, you know, the QRST wave, right? The QRST wave, the Christ wave, right? And we've had the conversations about the comparison between noon and, subatomic, soup, and the emergence of Atum from the subatomic chaos and blah, blah, blah. So we've had that kind of conversation. And, so we were able to expose some hidden layers, and go into some spaces, some out of the box kind of thinking, to just jog maybe some latent genetic memory that might be, like, wait, I did think of that, but I think that, to create those moments so that we can segue into, where we needed to go with the bioelectricity, and then this conversation about the heart and the brain. The heart and the brain, right? Now, to open up the conversation on the heart and the brain, right? To open up the conversation on the heart and the brain, we have this issue. We'll probably, come back around to it. But we have this issue that we have to deal with, right? Because in Kemet, right? In Kemet, this is Kemetic naturopathy. So in Kemet, they said that the mind emanated from the heart, right? The mind emanated from the heart, right? The people who inherited and then erased Kemet, the Greek folks said that the mind emanated from the liver, right? That's because they inherited some stuff they didn't understand, right? But they wasn't totally incorrect, the Greek folks, right? Now, later on, the Romans, and it gets crazy from there, right? It gets crazy from there. We get to this new thing, the Germans, aka the Romans, right? Because the Germans are the Romans, just in case. Because I know a lot of times we reference the Romans, and then somehow people, they don't really, their ability to do the 2+2 thing, is a little challenged right now. We live in that world where folks, 2+2 sometimes it's like 7 or 3. You know what I'm saying? We got Terrence Howard mathematics floating around out here in these streets. So folks are having a little trouble with their 5 + 5 = 10 out here. You know what I'm saying? So just in case you didn't know, right? From the time that Rome got control of everything from the Greeks, they haven't relinquished control, right? They haven't relinquished control, right? You may think they did, but they didn't, because politics and economics, all of those things operate beneath the umbrella of science. And the large concepts of science that govern our world are German, right? The science may not have its roots there, but the names, the faces, the dates, German, right? So largely you can say our scientific world is German engineering, right? So one of the things we like to do is uncover those Kemetic roots to a lot of the German engineering, right? But when we got to the age of modern science, right, one of the main things that they used to bury the concept of Kemetic naturopathy was the very central, like the centerpiece of Kemetic science. And it's like, it's like the saying, like, like if you're getting jumped, you get the biggest guy and you jump on him, and maybe if you can wear out the biggest guy, the other guys will run off. Or, like, God forbid, you'll find yourself in jail, just beat up the biggest guy or whatever. Like that concept. chop off the head, and like that's kind of what they did. Understanding that the entire central focus of Kemetic science was Nefer, the symbol of beauty, stems from the heart and the breath, right? The eternal life, heart and the breath, right? Science, heart and breath, right? Everything, heart and breath. So by kind of like teaching the world that the idea of the unification of the heart and the breath and everything emanating from that unification, by teaching the world that that was mythology and gobbledygook, it was like in one foul swoop, they was able to cut the head off of, boop, that's it. And then from that point going forward, Egyptologists have been keeping that thing going, right? Whether these are white Egyptologists, black Egyptologists, doesn't matter, right? They've been keeping the lies going, right? So fast forward, right? And you could say, if you're a person that has a relationship with God, you could say that this is kind of God's hand, right? But if you're agnostic or atheist, I could understand you saying, no, it's just science. But fast forward, a problem pops up. This is a big problem. This is an unescapable problem. This is a magnanimous problem. Like we might have to pull some Don King adjectives and vocab. Like we might have to get some adjectives from Don King to describe the size and scale of this problem. Right? And here's the problem. Science teaches us that information is stored in magnetic fields. Information is stored in magnetic fields. That's how the world has advanced. Hard drives, laptops, cell phones. Information is stored in magnetic fields. Right? Information can be conducted a variety of ways. It can be transmitted a variety of ways. But stored, magnetic fields. The brain is the center of your memory. The brain is the center of your memory. Okay, now, here's where the problem lies. Because science is presenting both of those things to the world, that's a conundrum. That's a conundrum. Because the brain does not have the largest or the strongest magnetic field in the human body. The heart does. Which takes us back to those crazy guys that were building those pyramid structures. Yeah. So either they're right about everything, or maybe they just had the ability somehow 5,000 years ago to know that the heart had a stronger magnetic field than the brain. Pick your poison. Either one of those roads to go down, it's ugly. Because we have to recognize that there was an intelligence alive within that community that somehow we can't even fathom them being able to understand anatomy at that level, right? But one way or another, so they had the weighing of the heart ceremony. In today's world, the heart is the number one killer. My mind is trained to recognize patterns. I'm like, wait a minute. So they had the weighing of the heart ceremony, and the number one killer today, even with all our pills and surgeries and medicine, the number one killer today is heart disease. No. You're supposed to be doing the same thing at the house. That's not a glitch. The camera didn't freeze. We're having a moment. Just interesting. Sometimes my children come home and they ask me things, or they say, they'll come. I seen this on the internet, or I heard about this in school, and I'm like, wait a minute, relax. Just appreciate that. Just sometimes you don't need to figure. You don't have to have the answer. Like sometimes you can just, that's interesting right there. That's interesting. That is an interesting anomaly. And then the number two killer is brain disease. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Because what does that mean? What should that tell you? Let me tell you what that should tell you. Let me tell you what that should tell you. That should tell you that with all of the books, the technology, and the AI, and everything that we have, we do not understand the heart, and we do not understand the brain. I mean, we do to an extent. We know a lot about the heart. We know a lot about the brain, but we don't. We're not close to knowing everything. We're not close. We can tell by the fact that they're killing us. At the rate that they're killing us, we don't know everything. Number two, the sharpest minds in the world have been trying to replicate these things with very little success. They're still chasing the ability to make an artificial intelligence as complex, as swift, as dynamic as the human brain. Right? They still can't figure out exactly what makes the heart tick. Right? They still don't understand the transformation of the original signals from the mom to the developing embryo. Like that initial, there's a lot that we're still learning So we've got to kind of let down some of that. No, I know this. Like, we don't really, we got to. Back when I was in another life, we had a little business on Broadway. And the older Spanish guys, they used to always say, Tranquilo, papi. Tranquilo, papi. Tranquilo, papi. And the ladies used to tell us, because we had like a little hair salon, pa que sepa. You know what I'm saying? Like, relax, be careful, take your time, right? Relax, be careful, take your time, right? So, with this subject, the memory bank, right? I thought it was a great time to employ economics mnemonics or economics mnemonics, right? To emphasize the other half of the definitions that exist that we don't use. So it's not like I'm necessarily making up these terms. I'm just highlighting the other side of these terms, the definitions that we don't use. Right? Like the word account. Our memory banks are full of accounts. Now, what are the odds on those terms working together that way? Right? Like you literally have memory banks full of accounts. We just don't think of it that way. Like, no, an account, you trying to twist that and make that. No, that's, yeah. An account is a retelling. Right? It's a retelling. So we got to really dig into this thing, because I know people are tired of me saying it. And people are tired of me saying it because it hurts a little bit when I say it. But we're working with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade reading levels. So I need you guys to like tranquilo. Like, as a global society, there's a lot that we don't know. But even within the global society, because John Q. Public is working with a 4th grade reading level, there is a lot that is known that John Q. Public does not know. Right? So here's 2 things about the brain real quick, and then we're going to move on. Here's 2 quick things about the brain, just for the know-it-alls, right? To get the know-it-alls to relax. 2 quick facts, right? One of which is going to be the main subject matter that we're going to be discussing. And it's the main subject matter of the memory bank book. You see right there, right? You see right there where my finger is at, right? That is fact number 1. Fact number 1 is they have recently discovered that the brain has a lymphatic system. Recently discovered. Recent in health science, medical science, is anything within the past decade or so. Yeah, that's recent. That's recent, because you discover something, it takes a while to map it out and fully understand and be able to articulate it, right? But when you look at it in reverse, we got to go back to the statement I made a few minutes ago, right? We got to go back to the statements I made a few minutes ago. I just said heart disease and brain disease, right? And the one thing that we can tell, because of the fact that heart disease and brain disease is the leading killers in the world, is obviously we don't fully know about the heart and the brain. Well, yeah. Recently discovered the brain has a lymphatic system. So all this time, folks are going to the hospital with blunt trauma, right? Blunt trauma, meaning they hit their head, they fell down, they were in a car accident, motorcycle accident, skateboard accident, the baby fell off the bed, whatever. Somebody got punched in the head too hard, or whatever. Boxers, football players, all of these things. Every single blunt trauma issue is a possibility. There's a possibility that it was undertreated or overtreated. There's a possibility that surgery wasn't done fast enough or surgery wasn't needed at all. There's a possibility that whatever our best line of treatments were for the brain have been absolutely incorrect all this time. Because there's a whole system in the brain designed to keep the brain healthy that nobody knew about this whole time. Nobody knew about the whole time. It was just, recently discovered the brain has a lymphatic system. Now, what else does that mean? Dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, right? Lions, tigers, bears, oh my, right? All of these diseases there have been clues. There have been clues. Remember, we wrote about a bunch of them, right? We have a very detailed account. Where's that book at? It's somewhere around here. Melanin versus Diabetes, book number 2. The black book with the skull on it. Yeah, Melanin versus Diabetes, book 2. That entire book is dedicated to the relationship of the therapeutic and medicinal applications of movement on the brain. The studies showing that exercise in certain mental illnesses, cognitive dysfunctions, across the board have been just as good or better than medication. So we've had clues. I mean, clues, like, not clues like, like, cause I get deep, I'm Yahweh is, I tell I get, I might go too far for some folks, right? But no, I'm talking about scientific journals. Like, like, this is why in the books are loaded with scientific journal articles and clippings and reference material. And because I want you to be able to research in real time, pun intended, in real time, right? In real time as you're going. I want to tell you some stuff, and then I want you to be able to research it right there. Like, while I got you in this book, you don't have to go anywhere. Hit the articles right here. Now, I know it's going to be some people like, wait a minute, Doc, I still don't get it. You said it's a lymphatic system in the brain. Well, how does that have anything to do with exercise? See, when you ask those type of questions, that's when I'll be ready to just... I'll be ready to fight you like an 8th grade schoolgirl. Put some Vaseline on my... Don't let her grab my braids. Don't let her grab my braids. I keep telling you, the lymphatic system does not have any pumps. Your lymphatic system, the pumps of your lymphatic system is your skeletal muscle system. Your skeletal muscle combined with the insulative layer of fat and then the conductive layer of fascia, right? I don't even know if you understand what I just described. Conductive layer, fat, generator. Generator, insulator, conductor. Generator, skeletal muscle, insulator, fatty tissue, conductor, fascia. Okay. You'll put that together later on, right? So the skeletal muscle is the mover of the lymphatic system. Now, the skeletal muscle is not only, so let's just go muscle, right? Muscle is not only the mover, right? It's also the shaker. No. I couldn't resist. It's also the generator, right? So because muscle is the mover and the generator, right? This is what happens. Make sure y'all can see. We'll just go cytokines, right? Cytokines is like the more general term, right? Even though the terms sound the same, like when you get to like myokines and chemokines, and it's a few more of them, but cytokines is like the main, that's the general name for all of the kines, right? And the kines, right, all of the cytokines, or all of the subsidiaries, these are like words in the language of the cells. This is how cells talk to each other, right? Systems in your body communicate with hormones, but cells communicate with cytokines, right? And cytokines are created based on electrical activity, subatomic activity, right? So because the muscles are electric, we're not going to say electromagnetic, we're going to say electric magnetic generators, right? They stimulate the activity of the cytokines, right? So that's one thing, right? So we put that right there. Boop, that's one. The other thing is they move the lymph, right? They move the lymph, right? They move the lymph. Lymph not only cleans, lymph carries nutrients. Lymph not only cleans, but carries nutrients. So that's a whole nother thing you have to think of with the lymphatic system, because the lymph is what primarily carries fat-soluble vitamins into the bloodstream. Lymph, right? But there's no movement of lymph. It doesn't flow like blood unless your muscles are moving, right? So your muscles have to be moving. Your muscles have to be moving. Now, you have a cheat code. You have a cheat code, right? You have a cheat code. Because I know the smart folks, like they, well, Inky, it ain't no muscles. There ain't no muscles in the brain. Relax. Tranquilo, papi. Tranquilo, papi. Tranquilo, papi. You have the back. See, this is why it's like Meek Mill said, it's levels. It's levels. We build and whoop, whoop, whoop. Right? Each book is like a brick in the pyramid. This is why we did the Jet Pillar book. Right? We did the Jet Pillar book. Right? And I spent a bunch of time telling you how the aorta is literally and figuratively tied to and around the jet pillar. So what does that mean? The pulses from the aorta, right? The mouth of the aorta, right? The was septa, the holy royal arch, right? Controls the activity of the cerebral spinal fluid in the brain. controls the activity of the lymphatic fluid in the brain. So you have the ability to control the speed and the movement of the fluid in the brain with the speed and the movement of your heart. The speed, the movement, and intensity of the movement of the heart is going to control the pulses from the aortic arch, right? So you have that. Then you also have the ability to do some pull-ups, right? You can do some pull-ups. And this is why we have, in a couple of books, elaborated on the fact that literally when you're doing pull-ups, what are you doing, right? Remember, the spine is piezoelectric material. And so when you're contracting and relaxing those back muscles, all right. How many minutes we've been with? Yeah, it's only 1 hour. I'm talking too much. So let me slow it down. Let me take this down. See, I know I got too excited. When they sent me the book. Normally, it might take Amazon 4, 5, 6 weeks to send me a book. They sent me that book in less than 1 day. I said, man, God is watching. Like, what is happening right now? Like, God want me to have this book at the house. Oh my God. And then pages, if you have this book, please, pages 112 to 118. Oh my God. When I was writing the book, it was like, oh my God, this is crazy right here. We going nuts. I was yelling. It was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm typing, yelling dumb loud. I was in here like I was running a full court, like, and one, like, and one ref, they can't hold me. I was going crazy. Telling you. I was out there looking like a full-blown Super Saiyan. I was out there looking like a full-blown Super Saiyan in them streets. Yeah, I was out there looking like a full-blown Super Saiyan in them streets, looking crazy. I was out there looking crazy. Mind your business. Spend time paying attention, balancing your interests so you can earn a living. You want to save money or you want to save your breath?
When you read these books like you supposed to, they're going to electrify your entire life.
We have figured out bioelectricity and completed the dream of Dr. Sabi and Robert O. Becker. Join us. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed it, but we kind of started, not kind of, we all the way launched and went super crazy with our economics, mnemonics, and Melanin vs. Diabetes book 3, the fiscal edition, right? And then, it's kind of heavy. And people got more interested in the slang and the terminology than the information. So I put it on pause and just went, I just went back to the science. But then, we kind of Once we got back around to the bioelectricity, I kind of dipped my toe in the water a little bit, right? We had tithe, right? And then we did the luxury tax thing. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, if y'all don't know what book I'm talking about, that's because y'all behind. That's because y'all behind. You got to stop. You got to go to Amazon, get the book. If you behind 2-3 books, then you need to be going right now. You need to be putting 2-3 books in your cart. If you behind 5 or 10 books, I don't know what the budget look like, but you need to. I don't know what to tell you. You might have to put 5 books in this week, another 5 books in next. I don't know how to budget. You got luxury tax, right? Luxury tax. Because why luxury tax? Remember the concept of King's disease. Remember the main driver of our physical and mental dysfunction is wealth, success, wealth and success. And the craziest whole part of this whole global, this whole thing that we do, this machine that we live in, is that while we live in luxury, it's kind of set up in a way for us to never feel that way. No matter how much we have, it's designed to make you want more, to keep you on the treadmill, right? And it's designed to make you want more of everything that has no value. So you don't value the value, right? Even in relationships, think about what we do, right? Think about what we do. We have friends, right? And we have people that we don't know that we like to impress, people that we like to meet, people we like to associate with. So what do 8 out of 10 people do instinctually? Instinctually, 8 out of 10 people throw their friends under the bus to get in good with strangers. The people that love you, the people that trust you, the people that you love and trust, you will sacrifice them keep chasing. Forget about the relationships you got now. There's a better one out there. Just get rid of the one you have now. Forget about that car you got. There's a better. Forget about that job. You can listen. Yeah. Get to chasing. Get to chasing. It was mind-blowing for me when I first heard like the economic standings of the different countries. And they said, the bottom 10% of America is like in the top like 60% around the globe. I was like, wait, what does that mean exactly? It's like, yeah, the bottom 10% in America is considered wealthy. I was like, whoa. When you say bottom 10%, are you including like crackheads and dope fiends and homeless people and winos and yeah, them mixed in with like minimum wage and the undesirables. Those are some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I had to think about it. You know what I'm saying? It hit me. Now, mind you, I'm in my 20s, hearing this, like, and it hit me, and I'm like, that's interesting, because it was always curious to me that, like, in my neighborhood, I'm from the Bronx, but I've lived in the roughest neighborhoods in America. And if I didn't live there, I spent time there. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere. From the hood to Texas, to Chicago, to LA, to Atlanta, to wherever yeah. I've been in all the gutters, right? And homeless people do have on like they wear Jordans and leather jackets, and I'm like, that is interesting. I don't think we ever thought about it. At least I didn't at the time. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is much later now, I'm almost a half a century, like, this is interesting. This is an interesting concept, right? Because nobody is satisfied. And I don't mean satisfied like stop living or stop being ambitious or stop setting goals or stop learning, stop growing, but like just enough to appreciate, right? Just enough to appreciate. And the reason why it's important, and I know you're like, Inky, just get back to the sign. No, this is the most important thing. Is because every day you get a little older. Every day you get a little bit closer to death. And chances are, everyone's not going to be a billionaire. These are just the facts. And so you don't want to spend your life chasing fantasies. Spend your life chasing fantasies and realize that you wasted your time. Time is more valuable than money. You wasted your time, right? So I'm just saying, I just got to keep that to the forefront, because this conversation is about memory. So we can't have a real, true, honest memory conversation without soul crafting, right? Soul crafting. Like, what kind of memories are you creating? What are you building? Right? What are you building? Especially if you are over here building with me. If you over here building with me, then, we in cahoots, right? We're conspiring, right? We're conspiring. So if you're over here conspiring with me, I'm telling you what we're conspiring to do. We're conspiring to be in love with each other, in love with our children, in love with our houses, in love with our everything. Yeah. You got a dog, be in love with your dog, be in love with taking your dog for a walk, be in love with picking up the poop. Be in love with picking up the poop. So the luxury tax is the energy we give back to the creator. The luxury tax is the energy we give back to the creator. That's what we do. We give back to the creator. We give back. Yeah, we give back, right? The ancient concept of giving back, not the new concept of giving back. The new concept of giving back is, be a dope dealer, shoot 5, 6, 7, 8 people, get the kids hooked on drugs, send, 15, 20 people to prison, like tear up the community, and then give away some 99-cent notebooks and a couple of turkeys on Thanksgiving, and you give them back to the community. You done took 100 lives and gave away $30 worth of notebooks and $100 worth of turkeys, and you give them back to the community. So no, the ancient way of giving back was a tithe, right? And the tithe was about some portion of your work. Now it's got perverted. It's got perverted over time to where now tithe is about, it's like almost like a bad word. Tithe is almost like you calling somebody mama. You calling somebody mama out of their name. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, tithing is a bad word now. Man, my phone went crazy. We got to have this discussion. Right? We got to have this discussion. So tithing is about the energy you give back, right? So it didn't matter what time period tithing was discussed. It was about a fraction of what your profit is from whatever if you're a farmer, set out some of that food. If you're cultivating animals, set out some of them animals. Fast forward to today, if you getting money, it's set out some, put a few dollars, but the purpose is missing, but it's about energy, because that's the divine part of you. The divine part of you is the energy part, right? That's what the mind is about. That's what the memories are about, right? Remember, sound and light only exist in the human mind. Well, I won't say the human mind. Take that back. Sound and light only exist in the mind. Sound and light do not exist outside of the mind. If you do not have ears or a part of your hearing system is impaired, you're deaf. You cannot experience sound. So sound is less about what's happening outside of you and more about you having the hardware to process, right? The hardware to turn those mechanical waves, those pressure waves, into digital signals, and being able to send those digital signals to your neurons, and then have those neurons reverse convert those electrical signals back into intelligible information that we call sound, right? If you don't have the pigment in your eye, or some part of your optic track is damaged, right? You're not able to convert electromagnetic waves into what we call light. It's based on your pigment system. It's based on your optic system. It's based on your pigment system to be able to convert those signals into digital electrical signals, and then route those to the proper neurons, and the neurons then convert those into information that we make pictures and movies in our mind of. And then we combine the light and the sound with the smell, right? The light, the sound with the smell, and we retain information in our memory banks. So it's only the mind that gives us this ability, and the equipment that it's outfitted with, right? The brain is more the processing unit than the actual. And I don't know why it's hard to really understand, because our computers are designed that way. Right? We have RAM for processing, and then we have hard drives for long-term storage, right? But short-term storage and long-term storage in two different places. Yeah. Short-term storage is more electricity-based, more light-based, right? But anytime you have electricity, you're going to have magnetism. So magnetism's there. It's on that, right? But long-term storage. Okay. So we got luxury tax, right? We got luxury tax, and we got what else? We got jewels, right? We got luxury tax, we got jewels, right? So luxury tax is the energy we give back to God. Says who? Says Dr. Inky. How do we get that back? Exercise. Right? So we put that on the back burner for now. Right? We put that on the back burner for now. Right? We put that on the back burner for now. Jewels. Very important word where I came from. Without this word, there will probably be no Dr. Inky. There will probably be no Dr. Inky without this. Because this was it. In the neighborhood, you had jewelry. You know what I'm saying? Like a guy have a nice little chain or a diamond ring or something. Right? You had jewelry, and then you had jewels. Jewels. Information that was required for you to understand how to do things properly in life. Jewels. Nas said, I left some jewels in his coat that he could sell if he chose. Words of wisdom from Nas. Try to rise up above. Keep your eye out for Jake, Shorty Rock. Jewels. Right? Jewels. Right? So for me, it hit different. It hit different when later on we get into the bioelectricity. And I found out that that is actually not just a slang word that we made up in the neighborhood, right? But some part of our genetic memory, right? Some part of our genetic memory, right? We understood somewhere in there that Solomon was the wealthiest man in the world, right? Because of the wisdom, right? When he could have got anything in the world, he didn't say, let me get a record deal. He didn't. Solomon didn't ask for a record deal when Solomon, you can have anything in the world. Oh, I know. I want a 5-year deal with the Lakers at $500 million. I want a $600 million contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. That's Solomon didn't. He wanted wisdom. He wanted wisdom. And so you kind of got to go outside of the biblical narrative to figure out how that wisdom was transmitted, right? But that's where you get into the Masonic space. That's when you open up the Kemetic space, right? Because that information King Solomon was representative of, right? That wisdom, right? The infinite wisdom. Right there. The infinite wisdom transmitted through geometry. Infinite wisdom transmitted via geometry. Joules, the geometry. What's the relationship with the joules and the geometry? Well, here's the relationship right here. Let's do this. Let's do this real quick. Let's do this. Let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. Boop. See? The center. This guy. All of biochemistry right there in one shape. Boop. All of the wisdom. This is your aromatic ring right here. Yeah. Your benzene ring, your aromatic ring. This is the star of the show right here. Yeah. This is the star of the show. You have tryptophan, and tyrosine. All the other amino acids, they just there as, like they there as NPCs. All the other amino acids are there just to facilitate these guys, right? Because these guys, right? And I know there's phenylalanine, but we're leaving phenylalanine off, right? The Bible said, if you lukewarm, I'll spit you out. We're leaving phenylalanine off. These are the two guys that are the stars of the show. Tryptophan, tyrosine. Everything important. Everything in your biochemistry runs around these guys. Everything. Everything. These guys. Why? Because these two amino acids have this shape, this geometry. What does this geometry do? This geometry allows your body to translate light into electricity, into joules. Yeah, that shape. That part. Yeah. That part. That part. Right? That shape allows your body to build structures that translate light into electricity. And then that shape allows your body to create piezoelectric structures that turn sound into light and electricity. So that shape, that six-sided shape, it's a lot of information in that geometry. Literally, it's the geometry of biological information, right? Okay. All right. Just so we get it. Matter of fact, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to do you one better. Because I know some of y'all don't have, I know some of y'all don't have all the books. See, that's where we need these other books, because we got a whole series of books in here where you got to have these books, right? You got to have these books. The Black Lines Matter, right? You got to have the Black Lines Matter book, and you got, all of these. You got. Let me show you why. Right? Because see, when we get to this space in the conversation now, where we at with the memory bank, we supposed to be swaggy, we supposed to be at a certain level with the information, but so let me show you what I'm saying. Real quick. Let's go over here and let's just start. Okay, let me hit the share screen. And y'all can look at my man, check my man Warren out. Right? Check my man Warren out. Right? Okay, now let's look at some neurochemistry, right? Let's look at dopamine so you can see what I mean. Look at the dopamine. Let's look at dopamine. Bam. You see dopamine? Look at that. You see? See that shape right there? Yeah. That's the star of the show. That is the star of the show. Hardworking, Mr. Dynamite. Okay, let's look at serotonin. Look at serotonin. You see that shape right there? You see that shape right there? That's what it's doing there. That's literally what this guy is doing, hanging out in here. Yeah. That's what this guy is doing, hanging out in here. That's what this shape is doing in here. Right? So we're talking about neurochemistry. Right? What about this one? Let's look up this one. Man, they selling. Okay, let's do it like that. Look, bam. Let's look up melatonin. Do we get a chalkboard one? No. Okay, we don't get a chalkboard one, but this one is good. We can just look at this one right here. Yeah, we can look at these right here. You see that? It's right there. Yeah, it's right there. So I want you to understand this. The geometry is important. Because it's only the aromatic amino acids that does that. Right? And I know sometimes we make jokes and, the breatharian folks be jumping off the top, we can't make those. Our entire biochemistry relies on those, and we cannot make those. Oh, I erased it already. We cannot make tryptophan and tyrosine. We cannot make aromatic amino acids. That's where the whole entire food conversation gets crazy. That's what the foodies are talking about. If you don't know what the foodies are talking about when they're talking about adding the chemicals to the food and the black seeds that are now white and blah, 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 that's what you're talking about. They're talking about the Shikimate pathway in the plants that produces the aromatic amino acids. It just so happens that the pathway in the plants that produces those aromatic amino acids that allows us to do all of the all of the magic is also the target for the chemicals. So when the chemicals sprayed into the food and they destroy that pathway, they literally destroy the most important part of the food that your body needs, the most important part of the nutrition in terms of building your body's structure, right? They may not mess with the amount of, calcium or potassium that the plant has, but they'll definitely mess with the plant's ability to produce those aromatic aminos, which will then mess with your body's ability to produce pigment, which will then mess with your body's ability to look, see, touch, feel, talk, think, like all of your senses, right? Including your mind, because they haven't figured out the relationship totally, but wherever memory goes, neuromelanin goes. That's just kind of how that goes. Neuromelanin and memories goes together. That's just, yeah. It just works together like that somehow. They haven't totally figured it out yet, but they know that they work together, because when the neuromelanin starts to dissipate from the brain, you can't, yes, so does the information. So that, yeah, that's, but you know, correlation is not causation, but correlation is not causation, but correlation is definitely evidence, right? And so we have more evidence that memory is tied to neuromelanin than the fact that Diddy may be an international sex maniac deviant. And we got a lot of evidence on Diddy, just saying. Right? All right. Dropping science. That is what we're doing. That is what we're doing. All right. That is what we're doing. All right. So jewels, right? I left some jewels in his coat that he could sell if he chose, right? Jewels, right? That's what we try to put in these books. Fill these books up with jewels, right? Okay. Okay. All right. I want to show y'all the book as we go through it, but there's stuff that's in the book that I can't put on the internet. So I have to kind of check. I gotta check before I put the stuff on the internet. I gotta make sure, you know, it's not crazy. There's some crazy stuff in the book. Okay. All right. We're gonna work with it though. We're gonna work with it. There's some crazy stuff in this book though. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Prerequisite books. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. talked about joules, right? We talked about joules, right? We talked about joules, right? We haven't really talked about slavery and its relationship to what we're talking about now, right? But I think because we're going to have to discuss this book. Like, this book it's a lot of discussions that we need to have in this book. So we're going to have to revisit, right? We're going to have to revisit a few things, so what we do. We'll circle back around. Yeah, see that? Shout out to Peyton, always reminding people, listen, come on now. We got to keep the lights on. Hit the Zelle. Hit the Zelle. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the Zelle. Hit the like. Hit the Cash App. Send me a few dollars. Hit the Cash App. Hit the Super Chat. Hit the Super Chat. Hit the Cash App. Hit something. Hit everything. Hit something. Man, I need a sandwich. Like, yeah. I need a, man, I got to feed these babies. Okay. Memory bank. A logical unit of storage in electronics. Stop right there. Memory bank. A logical unit of storage in electronics. Again, I know I apologize for this, because I know for some people it's like, Inky, can you stop reminding us that folks got a 4th grade? Listen, that's what we got all these books for, so that we don't fit into that group. We are supposed to be reading. We are supposed to be increasing our readings, our reading level every month. 1 month of reading over here is like a whole 1 month of reading over here is like 3 or 4 grade levels. 3 months of reading over here, you at the collegiate level. 6 months of reading over here, you PhD level over here. Quick. Boop. We creating geniuses over here. We building minds fast. BMF. We building minds fast over here. BMF. We building minds fast over here. Right? So we got to break this down. Memory bank. Right? A logical unit of storage in electronics. Because sometimes we let definitions just slip right past us. And we don't fully grasp the term. A logical unit. We gotta stop right there with logical unit, right? Logical unit. Logic, right? This is why we have what I'm getting ready to say. Come on, let's see how your probability is. Let's see if you could calculate the probability of what Dr. Iggy's about. That's why we have the if P then Q book. What else? The trigonometry book, right? The trigonometry book especially, because we went into the comedic math, right? Because the underlying science of logic is binary. Right? The underlying science of logic is binary, and the root of binary is what? Choice. Right? Choice. Our religious text would tell us free will, the divine gift. Right? Eating of the tree of good and evil. Man is now like one of us. Free will. The gift of choice. The gift of choice. The choice to live in heaven, to live in the garden, or to live in hell. The choice. You have the choice. You're making these conscious decisions. Choice. This or that. This or that. That's how we start as babies when we don't have any stored information. We don't have anything in the memory bank, right? Technically, we're broke. We don't have any cash yet, right? We don't have any cash yet in the memory bank, right? I know some of y'all that know how RAM works. They're like, oh, yeah, it is cash in the RAM. Yo, this is crazy. It's cash in the memory bank. Yeah, it's cash in the memory bank. Anyway, so we don't have any memories yet, right? But then we start making choices. And we learn from our choices, right? We touch this. Ooh, that didn't feel good. We store that memory. So now when we come across that choice again, the logical decision is not to touch that thing again that hurt us the first time. This is where the saying comes from. God protects dummies and babies, right? You don't know any better. You don't know any better. You don't have any information stored. So logic, binary, right? So this is why in Kemet, what did they do? They taught binary math as addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Everything was taught through a binary lens so that our brains would be hardwired to think mathematically. Our brains will be hardwired to think mathematically. It will be hardwired into the framework of our nature. Right? But that's not how it is now. That's not how it is today. Right? This is why we're in an epidemic of dementia and losing our minds, and the kids are getting dumber and dumber. This is yeah, because we're teaching the binary to the computers, to the laptops. We're teaching the binary way of processing information to the cell phone. And we're teaching the humans to depend on the cell phone, to depend on the laptop, to depend on the machine to do the actual calculating. Because the machine's learning the binary. So the machine is the logical unit. Even though, what's the naturopathic secret? Right? Because some of us, shh. Between me and you. Some of us remember when it was dangerous out here to call yourself a holistic healer. Like, shh. Holistic healers and naturopathic doctors was like turning up, like. Why? Because they didn't want the cat to get out of the bag. Or in the science world, the cat to get out of the box. They didn't want the Schrodinger, they didn't want the cat to escape the box. And what's the cat? The cat is the body's electric. That still hasn't set into people's minds all the way fully. We say it, people know the phrase, but they haven't, it hasn't set in because it's not a thing taught in school yet. So it's not institutionalized. It's because it's not institutionalized, it's not general information yet. This is why we spent so much time building out a new version of the anatomy so we could understand the body electronically. Because if the body's electric, come on now. 2 + 2 is 4. If P, then Q. If the body's electric, memory is a magnetic phenomenon. Right? When you go to the hospital, you got something going on with your brain. They put you in the what? The MRI. Yeah, they put you in the MRI with what? Yeah. Right? Okay. So, memory bank, a logical unit of storage in electronics. You are electronics, right? Which is hardware dependent. In a computer, the memory bank may be determined by the memory controller along with physical organization of the hardware memory slots. In a typical synchronous dynamic random access memory or double data rate random access memory, a bank consists of multiple rows and columns of storage units and is usually spread out across several chips. In a single read or write operation, only one bank is accessed. Therefore, the number of bits in a column or row per bank and per chip equals the memory bus width in bits. The size of a bank is further determined by the number of bits in a column and a row per chip, multiplied by the number of chips in a bank. Some computers have several identical memory banks of RAM and use bank switching to switch between them. Harvard architecture computers have two very different banks of memory, one for program storage and another for data storage. A memory bank is a memory of cache memory. Now see, a couple of important terms here we just have to peruse. We just have to peruse the ancient origins of a couple of these terms here. We just have to peruse them. Right? We just have to peruse them. The cache. Cache. That is a very interesting term, especially when we find out that the memory bank stores cache. What? Oh, but it's not spelled like this. It's spelled, spelled like this. Cache. Interesting, right? Because in Kemet, sugar. Your body's number one source for what? This is one of those moments where we just interesting. Interesting, right? Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, this is interesting. This is interesting, right? Remember that conversation we had when Jamie Foxx, was in the hospital with the brain bleed, and we went through the whole neurovascular unit and the divine cow and the whole. Okay. So interesting, right? Very interesting. And then we have another little interesting. Haha. Yes, we do. On page 98 in the dementia book, right? The dope game book, the dopamine book. Yeah, go to page 98. You have that, right? Just a very interesting coinky dink. Let me open up. Let me open up. Yeah, because it's very interesting. Right? It's very interesting. So we just got to take a look at it. Yeah, very interesting. So it's just very interesting. Something for us to just take a look at real quick. Right? Very interesting. Very interesting. Right? In Kemet, they associated the RAM with the brain. In Kemet, they associated the RAM with the brain. The innermost part of the brain, the place where the soul lives. It just so happens that that's the place where all of the fluid is. And that's kind of like the central feature of our conversation with the lymphatic system. So it just so happens that this whole system that was just discovered recently is a fundamental part of the kinetic, it's a fundamental part of the program. So when Osiris, Asar, Wusir gets chopped up into 14 parts, right? When he gets chopped up into 14 parts, and Isis and company, right? They go to finding the 14 parts, put him back together to remember him, right? To remember him, right? See, listen, I find coincidence all over the places. I'm always looking at patterns. So for me, it's very interesting that Tory Lanez got stabbed 14. I'm just saying. The world's a stage. I'm not saying that was staged. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying some interesting things happening in the media right now. That's all. I'm just saying there's some interesting things going on. Interesting things. So when we look here, we see that the RAM is actually a anatomical, it's mythos, it's a story, but it's based on the anatomical geometry or the anatomical shape of the ventricle system in the brain, right? These are the first two ventricles, third ventricle, and the fourth ventricle, right? These two up here ventricles. These are your lateral ventricles. Then your third ventricle, fourth ventricle. Right here in the third ventricle area is where all of the magic happens that people have falsely attributed over the years to the pineal gland. Oh, the pineal gland is amazing. No, 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 no. The third ventricle is amazing. The pineal gland is a outgrowth of the third ventricle. The pineal gland is attached to the third ventricle. The pineal gland has crystals that are converting sound and mechanical waves into electrical signals for the third ventricle. Anyway, another part of the conversation. Another conversation for another day. Right? I just wanted to touch on those two terms popping up in there, right? The RAM and the cache, right? Okay. So, memory, the faculty of the mind by which data or information is encoded, stored, and retrieved when needed. It is the retention of information over time for the purpose of influencing future action. So right in there, we got logic and we got probabilities. We got logic and probability right in there, right? It is the retention of information over time. Is that like, ain't that kind of, like, remember our conversation, right? And I was saying we do our exercise formula over time because power, right? Power, wattage is energy used over time, right? Interesting, right? Interesting. So we have the same concept, right? Or kind of, right? I could be stretching, right? I could be stretching, right? The retention of information over time for the purpose of influencing future action, right? But maybe I'm not stretching. Because remember, we had the probability conversation. Do y'all got the probability book? Y'all better not be slacking. Listen, this is why we went through the probability book. So we could get this whole concept of variables, right? Right? Let's look back at that part of the definition. Right? The retention of information over time for the purpose of influencing future action. Future action, right? Future action is outcome. That's the same whole idea of like trigonometry on paper, right? Input, output, right? Trigonometry is like probability, but in geometry, right? Because probability is variables, output, right? Storing information for future action, right? Better not do that again, right? So we store information so we're better. But now we're being socially conditioned to stop storing information. And the richest man on earth is building devices so that your brain is not even, bro, it's getting so dark out here. Once these neurological chips, the crash in global intelligence, it's going to be so crazy because people are going to seem intelligent. That's what's happening now. People seem intelligent because they got so much Google and AI, and now they got the glasses that's out. I think Ray-Ban just released the internet glasses where you could sneak, you could sneak search. You could sneak search. Like, I made a post because I know I got the shorts now, right? So I posted something on my page and somebody commented, but they didn't comment of themselves. They just had, like they put Google, like I was like, man, it's wild out here now. But people are going to seem intelligent because they're going to have intimate access with computers. But it's not going to be intrinsic or internal or personalized intelligence. People are going to be dumb as a sack of potatoes. I'm telling you, I seen it coming, even though I didn't fully know what was coming, but I seen it coming when they replaced the children's school books with tablets and iPads. I was like, yo, where's your school books? Oh, no, Dad, we don't carry school books. We just use the iPad. It's all right on there. What? Oh, no. No. This is crazy. All right. When you finish doing that homework, I got some other homework for you. Yeah, let me get y'all brains to doing some actual work, because that ain't it right there. We got to figure this. We got to get this together. So, if past events could not be remembered, it would be impossible for language, relationship, or personal identity to develop. My bad. If I was a better YouTuber, I would have an explosion for you right now. Yeah, if I was a better YouTuber, I would have an explosion or something nice for you to go right there. You know what I'm saying? Here, let me read it again, and then we I put in my thing. If past events could not be remembered, it would be impossible for language, relationships, or personal identity to develop. Listen, a recollection, remembrance of awareness or consciousness. Also, fame, renown, reputation, mind, memory, a record, memory, remembrance, faculty of remembering, the mental capacity of retaining, anything fixed in or recalled to the mind, devices which store information. All right? Now, that's a memory bank. Right? So we went through the memory bank. As thorough as one can in a few minutes, right? Now let's look at the word bank. 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 A bench for rowers in an ancient galley. An institution that accepts. We're gonna get how almost a bench for rowers in an ancient galley. See, I'm telling you, our number 7 in the Book of Gates, very important. Osiris organizes subatomic energy as work. Masonic philosophy is about work. What is the scientific definition of the word energy? The ability to do work. I'm telling you, the most wicked part of slavery or forced labor is that people lose the divine understanding that work is a privilege. You have the ability to work, the privilege to work. But when you're working and you're not being remunerated, your work, thus your self-worth feels zero. You feel like it's worthless. You feel like your work is worthless, so you're worthless and just And the craziest thing is that robs you of the divinity. Like literally, that's the reason you're alive is to work. The reason you have energy, because energy is the ability to work. You store energy so you can work without consuming energy. You already got some saved up. We have an obesity problem because people don't understand the simple definition of the word energy. Right? We don't get the whole concept, right? We don't get the whole concept, right? The whole concept is, okay. Now, we can go God or, right? Or, I don't want to force my beliefs on you. We can go to sun, right? Either way, right? Because our holy book says that God is light, the light of this world, right? So we don't have to wrestle with the semantics, right? But we know that light, natural light, gives us photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the fuel of all life on Earth. Photosynthesis is the process of hydrating carbon. Hydrating carbon. That's how nature stores light for us. Nature, the natures, store light for us with water and carbon. So the basic unit of all carbohydrates is CH2O. That's the basic unit of all carbohydrates. A water molecule and a carbon atom. Carbohydrates. And in those carbohydrates, in the bonds up in there, that's where the light is stored. But we don't get that, because instead of saying light, we say, photosynthesis is a quantum phenomena of endothermic reactions. What? John Q probably don't know what is this? A quantum phenomena of endothermic reactions. Yeah, a quantum phenomena of endothermic. Real tiny. Got it. Subatomic. Okay, it's real tiny phenomena. I mean, it's a thing that's happening. So it's a real tiny thing that's happening. Endothermic reaction. Okay, capturing light. Storing light. Yeah, storing energy. right? So when you break down the molecule or the compound, you get an exothermic reaction. So making the compound or the molecule, if it's endothermic, when you break it down, it's exothermic, meaning the energy is now released, right? And so our bodies run on these processes, right? So the sugar, the fuel of biology, right? The fuel of biology, this process here, these crystals, right? Because that's what they are in essence, sugar crystals, right? Right? Sugar crystals right? Crystals are repeating units, right? Simplified, right? Simplified definition of crystals, repeating units, right? Because that's what you got the carbohydrate, the hydrated carbons, those are repeating units. So these are, right? Carbohydrates, we can call them sugar crystals, right? It's for your body to do what? For your body to do what? Turn the carbohydrates into water and I was going to say electricity, but instead of saying electricity, I'm going to use our new, we're getting familiar with this one. Yeah. Water and joules. Yeah, because you put joules in the safe. Yeah, you put joules in the bank. You store up the joules, right? So yeah, the word joules works better, right? So you break down the carbohydrates. Remember, cytochrome 4, right, is recycling water. Remember, in the electron transport chain, mitochondria is producing water. That's why we have a book called Mitochondria Water. See, you might have missed a few books. You got to go to Amazon, get the Mitochondria Water book, add it to your cart, check out. Right? Okay. So now look. We have this divine process, this amazingly magical system that defies all logic to just happenstancely formed itself, right? Because we got theories of how the universe was created. So it just rocks bumping into each other by mistake. It doesn't do a photosynthesis. That's an information containing system, self-organizing universal light. Anyway, this is a system, right? This whole system of photosynthesis, this whole system, right? This whole system is a loop to take that sun, right? And for you to be able to reproduce that in your cells. Right? For you to reproduce that in your cells. So when you break down the ATP, right? When ATP becomes ADP, right? This part right here, this arrow, this arrow is our exothermic reaction. This is the point where light is released into the cell. Yeah. Right? Light is released into the cell. That light is energy, right? But what is energy? The ability to work. So the main problem with disease is that we're taking God for granted. The main problem with disease is that we're taking God for granted. Okay. All right. I'm off my soapbox. All right. Listen, y'all know I'm still the minister. Y'all know I'm still the minister, guys. I still have, minister moments. I still have minister moments. All right, so the bench for rowers in an ancient galley, right? So rowers, these is workers, right? So it's work. An institution that accepts deposits from the public and creates a demand deposit while simultaneously making promissory notes. Interesting. That promises are also right. Okay. The ground that borders the current and confines the current in the natural channel when the current level or flow is normal. Right. Now, see, this right here definitely applies to what's going on in our brain. Right. Definitely applies. Right. The ground that borders the current and confines the current in the natural channel when the current level of flow is normal. Man, we could go right from here and springboard into such a multiple sclerosis conversation. All right, but we already 2 hours in. We already 2 hours in, so I don't want to,
Myron! Myron!
What?
What are you doing? What you doing?
What you talking about? What am I doing?
You reading them nasty books again, right, Myron?
Everybody read no nasty books, man. You scared the hell out of me. What you talking about, man? Wait, I ain't did that in about 2 weeks.
You called yesterday too. What you reading? What you reading?
You scared the goddamn book, man. Dr. Inky. I went on Amazon and got 3 Dr. Inky books because I'm reading about melatonin and biochemistry.
What is, Myron, that's not even a, first of all, it's not melatonin and whatever it is that you just said. It's melanin and biochemistry. You can't even pronounce the word, so how you reading? How you reading, Myron?
I'm not looking at the pictures. I got the books right here. I'm looking at the pictures. You know, it ain't nothing nasty about this. So what are you talking about? I got all the books right here. What are you talking about?
Myron, you don't even know how to read. Every time we get mail, you bring it to me. You think I don't know that?
I went to I got hooked on Phoenix. Now, what you talking about? I was hooked on Phoenix, so I know how to read.
As of when? Because first of all, hooked on phonics, I believe it's for kids. There's no such thing as hooked on things. And if I recall, you're the same person that thought reindeer was pronounced reinder, and you're the same person that thought pigeon was pronounced piggion. So it makes sense that you went to hooked on Phoenix.
Man, such a dumbass.
No,
you always trying to say somebody can't read. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Inky prayer number 2. We give thanks and praise to the Most High God for the divine spark that set our cells into perpetual motion. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and caves. We give thanks for the ability to drink clean water every 60 minutes, flooding the river of life. We give thanks that sugar has not covered our ferries and turned them into stone. We give thanks that darkness has not covered the riverbanks with calcium and turned them into stone. We give thanks that anger and fear have not turned our almonds bitter, turning our heart to stone. We give thanks for smooth sailing upstream through the valley of death, through the superior vena cava into the right atrium. We give thanks for smooth sailing around the heart through the corona crown, joining the vortex in the right atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim, We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway to the vineyard. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate to the vineyard closes. We give thanks to the Most High God that provides the light and our breath, and the light in our breath. We give thanks for the fine olfactory system that makes our grapes ripe with light. We give thanks for the Jed pillar that provides us with a stable fleet of ferry boats to dock in our vineyard. We give thanks for smooth sailing through the pulmonary vein into the storm of the left atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter closes. We give thanks for the magnetism of the most holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and our caves. Amen.
Okay, man. Woo! It was working. It was working. Well, technically, the prayer is like 4 minutes. So it's two versions of it up. They're not like on the skinny, like the shorts, but there's two versions of it up. There's one that just goes through the anatomy and then one that goes through the exercises. So that way, you know what I'm saying, you have the ability to visualize the anatomy, which is the depending on what day you catch me on, I might say something different. You know what I'm saying? Like if you catch me on Monday, I might say that the visualization of the anatomy is more important than the exercise. Then on Tuesday, I might say the exercise is more important. Like you really can't separate the two, because being able to visualize your inner self, your anatomy is like that's what the ancestors were trying to achieve and teach. We got it confused because we started listening to these goofballs with the chakras and the drugs and all, like, so we got spirituality confused. But it's right there in plain sight, like all of our texts. It's the inner journey. Inner journey is anatomy. Inner journey past anatomy is biochemistry. Everything else is goofballery. You know what I'm saying? Like, so. But yeah, there's two 4-minute versions, you know, like one that takes you through the anatomy so we could get the visualization of, you know, the blood flowing through the body, flowing through the heart. And then one, that was the actual first one, was the visual, you know, the more visual one. But then, you know, folks was like, yo, that's cool, but how do I do the exercises again? I'm like, just open up your book. It's in the back of the book. You know what I'm saying? Like, but, you know, we did the video too. But yeah, the shorts is like skinny. You know, they like cell phone made, like the skinny videos. They not the wide. You know, we like them thick. All right, so back to bank, right? Bank comes from the word mound, right? That is another reason why we needed to put out the primordial mound book before we got to the memory bank book, right? That's another reason why we had to put the primordial mound book out before we got to the memory bank book, because the word bank comes from the word mound, right? So when we think about memory, right, and we go back to, I guess if we do a comparison between, you know, the weighing of the heart ceremony in terms of what was considered valuable, what made you a keeper, like what got you graduation to the next life, right, was valuable information. Now, of course, we have a modern science kind of, right? So you have horizontal gene transfer and you have vertical gene transfer. Okay? This is how we transmit genetic information, the real memory, the super long-term memory, right? That goes beyond personal, right? You have horizontal gene transfer and vertical gene transfer. Vertical gene transfer is parent to child, right? Parent to child. That's vertical gene transfer. I'm going to make these babies and I'm going to share my genetic information with them, right? I'm going to share my genetic information with them. They're going to add to it and then share it with their babies. And it's going to move in a vertical line straight down forever until something stops the bloodline from reproducing, right? Horizontal gene transfer is how we share our genetic information with other people and even other species, right? So we share our genetic information globally throughout the ecosystem, right? That's horizontal gene transfer, right? And most people that are even remotely familiar with the subject, they're only familiar with the subject in terms of like, because before the pandemic, whenever I discussed horizontal gene transfer, people looked at me like I had four heads. Post-pandemic, more people are familiar because they were looking for information during the pandemic to try to understand the pandemic. And, you know, horizontal gene transfer kept popping up, right? Because a virus is genetic information, right? And usually when people are getting sick, it's because it's cross species. Not always, but usually it's because the genetic information that's being shared is cross species, right? So you have bird flu, right? Cross species. You have people getting genetic information, right? Originating in birds, right? Making folks sick, right? So horizontal gene transfer, vertical gene transfer, right? And then you have, when you analyze the human DNA, you have transposons, and you know the conversation can go even crazier. But for our conversation, right? we stop it there. Right? We stop it there. Right? We stop it there, and then we go back to energy again. Right? We go back to the concept of energy. Right? The best things in life are free. Right? So remember the concept. Remember the concept, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Only fans. Nah, just kidding. Only transformed. Man, that's a long word. Right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Right? So what you got to extrapolate from this is this right here is the essence of information creation. This is the essence of information creation. So the purpose of life, the purpose of energy is to create information. This is why weighing of the heart ceremony, they judged your whole life by what type of information you created. What was you out there doing? What was you out there doing? Like with my children, like, Dad, can we go outside? Going out there. When they come back in, you know, I got to check them. I got to rough them up. I got to harass them a little. What was y'all out there doing? They come in from school. What you was at school doing? Man, what was you up there doing at that school? Right? They on a team sport. What y'all did in practice today? What you was up there doing? Yeah, what was you up there doing? Because you a representative of me. You my reflection. So what was you up there doing with your energy? What was you investing, right? This is the Warren Buffett at health class. So what was you investing your currency into, right? We're talking about electricity, current, right? Bank, right? The banks guide the current, right? So what was you investing your energy into, right? What type of impression? What type of impression did you leave? Right? What type of impression did you leave? What type of mark did you leave on the world? Right? Okay. So it's important to get this concept. This is the flow of life. This is important. We're talking about memory. There's nothing more valuable on earth. Right? Your memories. It's the only thing that you got to take with you. You ain't taking the car or the jewelry. You ain't even taking your wife or your husband. You ain't even taking your children. Only thing you got. That's what you get a whole run here to do. You get a whole run. Try to escape with the information. Right? You get to share it a variety of ways. Horizontal gene transfer, vertical gene transfer. Get you some books, some writing utensils, make some records of your information, of your experiences, right? Some receipts, right? But that's what life is about, creating information, transforming energy. You transform energy with work, right? Work is how you transform energy, right? The natural compensation you get for working, the natural compensation you get from working is you get to retain the information you created. Those are your wages. These are your wages. As Masons, right? What is the quest for? Right? What is the quest for? More light, more knowledge. Okay. Right? Okay, hold up. Hold up. Yeah, it's too much. It's too much.
Myron!
Dude, I can't stand.
Myron!
What?
What are you doing? What you doing?
What you talking about? What am I doing?
You reading them nasty books again, right, Myron?
Everybody read no nasty books, man. You scared the hell out of me. What you talking about, man? But I ain't did that in about 2 weeks. What
You
talking
called
about?
yesterday too. What you reading? What you reading?
You scared the goddamn book, man. Dr. Inky. I went on Amazon and got 3 Dr. Inky books because I'm reading about melatonin and biochemistry. Biochemistry.
What is, Myron, that's not even a, first of all, it's not melatonin and whatever it is that you just said. It's melanin and biochemistry. You can't even pronounce the word, so how you reading? How you reading, Myron?
I'm not looking at the pictures. I know I look at the pictures. I got the books right here. I'm looking at the pictures. You know, it ain't nothing nasty about this.
Okay. All right. So hold on. Yeah, we got a lot of math here that I want to skip. We got a lot of math here that I want to skip. We will come back to. And like, hold up, though. Where's you skipping past? If y'all got the book, y'all got that on your own. Y'all better have these books. Because it's a lot of information in this memory bank book. Like, it's a lot of information that we really can go into all of it in one day. But we can skip around and get a good introduction so we move into it. Okay. All right, let's see where we at here. blah, blah. Magnetic fields. Microbiome. Okay. I guess we could just start right here. Let's just start right here for a second. Right? Let's start right here on the energy concept. Let's stick to the energy vibe for a second. I got enemies, got a lot of enemies. I see me something wrong with their memory. Trying to take the wave from a netcher. All right. The brain doesn't have an energy bank. The brain doesn't have an energy bank. The brain does not have an energy bank. Right? So think about this for a second. That's why I put in the book right there, full stop, because this is one of those meditative moments where I just want you to just think about the concept, right? And maybe I should have added more detail, but I guess I assumed that you done read the other 100 books that we've, right? So you probably need to make sure y'all have this. Right? Make sure y'all have this. Make sure y'all have this. Right? Make sure y'all have this book right here. The Inky and the Brainwave book. Inky and the Brainwave. Right? Make sure y'all have this book. Inky and the Brainwave. Right? Because we was in our bag. Right? But I want y'all to think about this for a second, right? Think about this for a second. Your brain does not rest. Your heart doesn't rest, but your heart's at the center of the energy system, right? Your brain does not rest. When you go to sleep, your brain is more active than when you're awake. Literally, I want you to get this concept. I want you to tune in. This is super important. When you go to sleep, your brain is more active than when you're awake. You going to sleep is 90% just for your brain. Sleep is a phenomenon designed for your brain. It's designed so that the most of your body can relax and all of the energy and the focus could be on the brain. It's a time where it's all about the brain. All right, because the brain is working all day, but the brain is working all day for everybody else. So if you're a single parent, you understand this, right? It's the time when you put the children to bed. You know what I'm saying? You put the children to bed, then you could be an adult again. Yeah, when you got children, you can't really be an adult. You don't really have. When you put the children to bed, for those few hours between the time that the children went to bed and you're still awake, grown folks time, right? That's kind of how the brain operates, right? But you have to really let it sink in that your brain has to work around the clock, and it does not have an energy system in and of itself. Your brain doesn't The brain doesn't have a energy bank. It doesn't store energy. At least not like we would think of, like glycogen, or you know what I'm saying, like how muscles store glycogen. The brain is different. The brain is different. The brain is almost completely reliant on blood. Period. Period. So you got to really get that concept in. Like, the brain got to work 24 hours a day, and it does not have. So this is why at the top of the aorta, right? At the top of the aorta, like when you look at the aorta, it looked like it's like a mohawk. Like the wasp scepter is like it's alive. It's like a cane, but it's like it's alive, right? It got eyes on it, which is pigment, chemoreceptors. And then it's got like a little mohawk, right? That little mohawk, those are arteries, main arteries. Those are like super main arteries. Like, those go straight to the brain. So if you look at the construction, if you look at the anatomy, it'll tell you how important this blood flow to the brain is. If you look at the construction, it'll tell you how important the blood flow to the brain is, right? Because the aorta is like, right? Right? But you got these guys, right? The heart down here, right? So what this tells you when you look at how the anatomy is built is that from the heart, the most important thing in terms of circulation is blood to the brain. Before the blood goes to the body, the blood goes to the brain. Before the blood goes anywhere, it goes to the brain, right? The anatomy will tell you that itself, right? Let's see if we can find us something real quick. Yeah. Let's look at our little mohawk real quick. Right? So you see this guy here, right? Most important part of circulation, right here. Now we look at this guy right here, you can see better, right? This blood is going straight up through your neck, right? Through your neck. And in your neck, that's where you got your, your carotid arteries and jugular veins. Let's see if we can get it better. What we got here? Right? Hello, ladies. We don't need to hear that on my live stream. This is that hour. Nah, we streaming though. We streaming. We ain't letting children dominate our. At least I'm trying not to. If it get crazy, then I might have to end the stream. But I like where we're going right now with the flow of information. You know, the currency, with in the banks, and So we're gonna keep it. We're gonna try to keep this thing going. Right. All right. So this is important though, right here. The structure of the anatomy itself lets you know what's important. Before the blood goes anywhere else, it goes right to the brain. First stop, right? First stop. Then it works its way on down everywhere else. But first stop, circulation up here, right? And we're going to revisit that. A couple times as we move through this information. All right, so 400 miles of brain vessels. 400 miles of brain vessels with no muscle and no energy bank. Right? 400 miles of brain vessels with no muscles, no energy bank. Right? Enter the neurovascular unit. Enter into the conversation the neurovascular unit. All right. Now, the biggest cause of poor brain function and dementia is blood flow. Discussing the neurovascular unit structure separately allows us to conclude the aberrant parasites are an early contributor and central to understanding Alzheimer's disease pathophysiology. Parasites have multiple functions, including maintenance of blood-brain barrier, control of capillary blood flow, capillary stalling, neurovascular coupling, intramural, periarterial drainage, lymphatic drainage, and consequently amyloid and tau clearance. Okay. I know I said a mouthful right there. So we're gonna go through the more important parts of this. Real quick, right? Capillary blood flow, right? Capillary blood flow is the blood that's released into the brain to feed the neurons, right? So they can have the ability to work. So get the whole process. The blood is carrying the energy, right? The blood is carrying with it the warrant, the charter. The blood has the warrant or the charter, right? The ability to work, right? So the neurovascular unit, right? The neurovascular unit is like the housing, the club, right? The lodge, right? The neurovascular unit is the collection of tissues that regulates the capillaries that's feeding the neurons, the astrocytes, the glial cells, like all of the brain cells. Now, that brings us to this term right here, neurovascular coupling, right? Neurovascular coupling is, you can simplify that by thinking, making sure the right amount of blood, like there's not more blood than the brain cells need to do what they got to do, right? So just the right amount, like a baby bottle. That's why the divine cow is such an amazing concept to describe the brain, because it's like a baby bottle for a baby. You got the milk in there, you got the unlimited amount of milk in the bottle, right? In the teat, in the teats of the cow, right? But the gods, the neurons, right? They just, as they need it, they'll drink it, right? As they need it, they'll drain it. As they need it, they'll pour it in. That's neurovascular coupling, right? The same way I keep saying your respiratory system and your metabolism have to be coupled. The demands for energy have to be coupled with the energy supply, the blood supply, right? So that your brain cells have the ability to work, right? Remember, health is a measurement of work, how efficient stuff works. Put it together. Health is how well your stuff functions, how well your stuff works, right? Energy is the ability to work. Health is how well your stuff works. Energy is the ability to work. So health is dependent on the energy system primarily before anything else. Because if it doesn't have the ability to work, it's unhealthy. It's sick, right? It's malfunction, it's broken down, it's degenerate, it's all of those terms, right? Okay. Now, right here is the origin of this term, the lymphatic system, right? It is a combination or an extension of your body's lymphatic system connecting to the glial cells in the brain. And I've been talking about these glial cells in the brain forever. Forever, right? Because the conversation for me, right? Just the evolution of the conversation. So you could figure out when I really locked onto this information, right? Back way before me and Ali Muhammad ever had beef, right? We changed the game. I can't take this away from him because he was the guy. He was my partner at the time. We changed consciousness. We went on a tour around the country and we changed the whole landscape of holistic health. We added hip hop to it. You know what I'm saying? We changed the whole vibe. It was no longer like 70-year-old men mixed with 300-pound fat people. Like it was different. We changed it. We added jeans and sneakers and Jordans and style to it. I added those components. Ali was wearing thrift shop military uniforms. Oh my God. But Umar was still working on his book at the time. This is before Umar's book came out, but he was saying that he was working on something. And so the conscious world and the internet, it wasn't so big yet as it is now. Like when I say big, I just mean spacious, so many personalities and platforms. So it was even though we was always, we was always at odds with each other, black folks, crabs in the barrel. The people still one community, one community. So if you're working on something over here, people people that follow your work are gonna take that work So as Umar's formulating his book, a lot of people are asking me questions about the other side of it, right? Because he's talking about, and I'm always the children guy. Like, even though this is supposed to be a conscious community, most of the guys don't take care of their kids, right? So anytime that there's a question about children, people always see me with my children, for better or worse. I'm not perfect, you know what I'm saying? But they at least see me with them all the time. So those questions get funneled to me, you know what I'm saying? And so Umar's working on, child behavior and grade, working on improve. So he's talking about working on this book to improve children's grades, to improve their ability to behave. And, people are like, so what do you think, is it just behavior? Is it just therapy and medicine, or is there like some portion of this that has to do with diet and exercise and nutrition? And so those questions, I bring the answers to those questions into what became the 40-day fruit fast. And in that pocket of research, answering those questions, like now, I mostly focus on like what people are funneling me through the Patreon, right? But then it was sugar and MSG. Sugar and MSG. And when I got down to the nitty gritty, obviously sugar overstimulating the reward pathway to addiction, like cocaine or heroin. Glutamate, on the other hand, overloaded the glial cells and the astrocytes, right? So even though I kind of was familiar with them a little bit, I hadn't really spent much time researching glial cells and astrocytes, you know what I'm saying? And pretty much when I was talking about this with other people, like my contemporaries, they had no idea what I was talking about, because pretty much the conversation surrounding the brain was just, there are more neurons in the brain than stars in the sky, and, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I forgot this white guy's name. Eventually, this guy came out with a book on excitotoxins. I'm mad that I can't think of his name, but I had already been in my bag with the MSG and how it, overstimulates the glial cells and astrocytes, and, and then that dropped the excitotoxins, and that put like a term and a whole terminology on it. And so from that, from that era, I was in that bag trying to figure out, like to nail it down. Right. And so this is easy 20, I've been studying this. I've been compiling research, right, for longer than any of these children have been alive. These children weren't even alive. Yeah, these children weren't even alive. You know what I'm saying? I think when we did the first 40-day fruit fast, me and Crystal might have been working on making Chase. Yeah, we might have been working on Chase. Or Chase might have been in the womb, but yeah, Chase was in the chamber. Chase was in the clip. I'm not sure if he was fired out yet or not. You know what I'm saying? But he was in the clip, right? So that's where we at with So now, fast forward, right? Now you have this conversion of glial cells or glial cells with the lymphatic system. And so that's, they put the term together, and you have the GL, right? And so you have the lymphatic system, right? The lymphatic system that runs through the glial cells in the brain. Now, in the Christ series of books, I had already started warming you guys up to this concept. In fact, going back as far as to the brainwave book and the lymphatic immunity book, right? The lymphatic immunity book. We already started warming you guys up to this conversation, right? Getting you ready, right? Getting you ready, right? So right off the back, without any information, you should already know. Again, we kind of touched on it earlier, Melanin versus Diabetes, book 2. Any and all parts of this system, the lymphatic system, is exercise based. Period. Any other information you get adds to that about the lymphatic system or the glymphatic, it adds on top of that. You start there. That's the base of the information. You start there. Your lymphatic system runs on exercise. You don't exercise, it doesn't run. There's no two ways about it. It don't matter what herbs you got, what pills you got from your doctor, what headache you had a tough day at work. None of that matters. If you don't run, it don't run. Right? Now, drainage has to do with REM sleep and glutathione. Right? Drainage, REM sleep, and glutathione. Now, what does your glutathione system run on? Your glutathione system is part of the NRF2 system. Oh, that's why we're supposed to have a monthly detox. How many of you watching this video have already ordered your monthly detox? How many of y'all got your monthly detox from the website already? If you haven't got your monthly, glutathione is regulated in your body through your NRF2 system. Okay. So you need the glutathione. You need a robust NRF2 system. So you have the glutathione. Then you need to tap into that REM sleep. Right? In order to get good drainage. Right? Think of it as a washing machine. Right? The washing machine do what it do, but it has to have that movement and it has to have the right combination of detergent, bleach, You might put a little cap of woolite or a little bit of ammonia in it. Little fabric, little freshener, little fabric softener, right? Okay. We got a lot of technical stuff. Mind your business. Spend time paying attention, balancing your interests so you can earn a living. You want to save money or you want to save your breath?
When you read these books like you supposed to, they're gonna electrify your entire life.
We have figured out bioelectricity and completed the dream of Dr. Sabi and Robert O. Becker. Join us. Yeah. All right. So, how many of us know the phrase sleep like a baby? Sleep like a baby. How many of us know the phrase sleep like a baby? Right? How you sleep. Right? There's a bunch of stuff that ties into activating and getting the most out of your lymphatic system. So you got the REM sleep, the glutathione, NRF2, right? Go to the website now, AmericanHealer.website. Get your monthly detox, right? Right? But sleep like a baby. What does sleep like a baby mean? How does a baby sleep? How does a baby sleep? How does a baby sleep? Come on, wake up. Wake up. How does a baby sleep? That's why we love you, Tika. That's why we love you. We talking to the folks that they may not have their, they got to get their life together right now. See, right now you're like, that was a good investment. Yeah, we did the right thing. We went and got us, we're not worried about how fast Inky gonna ship it because we loaded for the next year. So how do babies sleep? Do babies sleep on their stomach? Or do babies sleep on their back? How do babies sleep? Come on. Who's awake? Who has children? Who knows how babies sleep? Right? How do babies sleep? Come on. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 The fetal position. The fetal position. The fetal position. The fetal position is the best sleeping position for your jugular veins. The fetal position is the best position for your jugular veins. Sleep like a baby in the fetal position. So now sleep like a baby just went from a saying, euphemistic, just, oh yes, I checked on, he would sleep like a baby. No. To an actual thing, right? Everybody has a hand that's dominant, right? And it usually corresponds to the opposite side of your brain, right? So if your right hand dominant, your left brain dominant, right? So if your right hand dominant, your right side dominant. So you want to sleep in the fetal position on your right side to get the best drainage. Your left hand dominant, you want to sleep in the fetal position on your left hand side to get the best drainage. Right? Come on now. We working. We got work to do. Right? We got work to do. This drainage is where the plaque is supposed to be going. The toxins, the plaques, sugars, leftover excess metabolites, right? All of these things are supposed to be flushed out every single night. Every night, you're supposed to put your brain in the washing machine. Every night, your brain supposed to go through the washing machine, and then the rinse cycle. Every night. So by the time you wake up, that bad boy is coming out the dryer. You know what I'm saying? Like how your mama, you know what I'm saying? Like when you was a child, right? And you lived with your moms, right? You didn't even really understand laundry. Your stuff was just folded and smelled good. It was folded up and it smelled good. Yeah, that's how your brain's supposed to be. It's supposed to be washed and dried in the morning and all folded up. Yeah, all folded up and just fresh, ready to go. Right? Now, when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel that way, you don't feel all fresh and ready to go, that means this didn't happen for you the night before. So that, I don't know whether you were smoking cigarettes, smoking blunts, because that's the weird thing about smoking weed or taking edibles, right? It'll put you to sleep, but you'll wake up tired. That's an interesting. It'll put you to sleep, but you'll wake up tired. See, when that happens, when you get sleep and you're not getting refreshed, there's a scientific definition. There's a process now that we can pinpoint. You're sleeping, but you're not getting refreshed, right? And this is the difference between people that can sleep 3 hours, 4 hours, and 5 hours and wake up like, rah, rah. They ready to build you a house. They got 4 hours of sleep and they ready to go for a fresh 20 hours. They good for another whole day. Versus some people, they get 7, 8 hours, 9 hours of sleep and they still waking up and they just Like it's not happening. It's still not happening because you're not getting this process. The lymphatic system is not doing what it's supposed to do somewhere along the lines. Whether you're not getting good circulation through the brain, you're not getting good drainage out of the brain, you don't have the right nutrition, you didn't exercise and move your body enough throughout the day, you know, there could be any combination of things contributing to the fact of why, right? Now, the last 10 years or so, because this is a newly discovered thing, this is where you've had all of the people telling you like, sleep in a dark room, sleep in silence, sleep, you know, you got to get to the REM sleep and the REM sleep and the REM sleep. Because scientifically, we understood that something happens during the REM sleep, right? Something's happening during the REM sleep that's responsible for the refreshed feeling you have the next day. And if you don't get to that deep sleep, you don't have the refreshed feeling the next day, no matter how much sleep you get. Now we know this is what's happening during the deep sleep. You're getting you're in that spin cycle. You're getting that washing machine. Your brain is in the washing. You're literally getting brainwashed in a good way. You're getting brainwashed in a good way, right? You're getting brainwashed in a good way. So this is that process. And people who have a really efficient lymphatic system, right? They still have their memory. They don't have the Alzheimer's. They don't have the plaque buildup. They don't have the dementia. They park the car and remember exactly where the car is. When the children call, they know who's who. They know voices. They remember them all. Yeah, they still remember voices. When they go back to their old neighborhood or they go back to their school reunion, they still know who people are by their walk. They can still identify a person's gait, right? Back in the days in your neighborhood, you know, wherever you grew up at, you could tell the person before they was even close enough to see their facial features, you could tell who the person is by how they was walking. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody's walk is unique, like a fingerprint. These are things that make the human experience that we start to lose. These are the wages of our lifelong work. Remembering voices, remembering walks, remembering touches, remembering feels, remembering smells, right? These are the identifying traits to people, places, things, right? So we start to lose those things. And then as we start to lose the memory of those identifying traits, the actual memories dissolve themselves. Okay. All right. All right. That's why I'm telling y'all folks, you got to mind your business. Right? Economics, mnemonics. Right? Economics, mnemonics. Mind your business. Right? That's not disrespectful. That's a prescription. Mind your business. Right? That's not disrespectful. That's a prescription. Mind your business. Matter of fact, let me see if this boy is minding his business. Did Caleb take out the dog? Yeah. Did y'all feed and water the dog? No. Y'all better start loving my dog. Got him. Oh, you already walked the dog. Yeah, you gotta love the dog. Right? All right. Mind your business. Mind your business. Manage, right? Manage your cash flow. Right? Mind your business. Manage your cash flow. That might be the craziest from all of the people feedback. All of the feedback from the book of the Legend of Wu Sid book. That might be the most the most amount of people ask me questions about that. The word cash meaning sugar in Kemet. Like, that's crazy. Right? Cash being the thing stored in your memory banks, being sugar, right? Being the number one cause of plaque buildup in the brain, Alzheimer's, to the point where Alzheimer's is nicknamed diabetes type 3, right? Cash. Manage your sugar flow. Manage your energy flow. Manage your ability to work. Make sure that you keep those systems coupled together. The same way you need to manage the amount of protein based on your exercise, repairing your body. How much energy do you need? Right? So when people ask me about the food and the carbs and the diet and this and that, I tell everybody's diet should be different based on your life, right? So your carbohydrates, remember in the algorithm book, we have that sugar number, that carb max number. That number should be based on your ability to metabolize sugar, and the largest contributing factor to your ability to metabolize sugar is your workload, your physical workload, right? Not, oh, I work 9 hours a day at my job. No. Your physical workload. How many calories are you burning a day? How many calories are you burning a day? That determines how much goodies you get to have. You burning a lot of calories? Well, maybe a donut or a couple cookies ain't gonna kill you. Maybe some donuts or some cookies or something ain't gonna kill you. Right? Look at the athletes. Look at our athletes. Look at basketball players. Basketball players don't get the rest. It's not like baseball. They go like soccer. And what happens with basketball players and soccer players? They get diabetes right after they retire. Why? Because they go from playing a sport where they're burning 5, 8, 10, 12,000 calories in a day. So they've got to consume a zillion calories to keep up with the demand, right? They've got to put in enough calories for the ability to work, to manage their daily workload. Their daily workload is 10,000 to 15,000 calories. So they've got to consume that much calories in order to be able to function every day. When they retire, they've built appetites around that amount of calories. They have addiction in their mind to that amount of eating. So if they don't quickly reevaluate what they're eating every day, and they maintain those old dietary habits from when they was running 20, 30, 40 miles a day, 60 miles a day. Yeah, athletes run a lot of miles. Disease comes quick. Disease comes quick, right? So We want to manage our cash flow. Mind your business, right? Manage your cash flow. And the best way to manage your cash flow, right? Investing, sweat equity. I told you, if Warren Buffett was teaching health classes, Warren Buffett would say you mind your business by managing your cash flow, investing sweat equity into your real estate, right? Your divine soil, right? To build your accounts, right? Okay. All right. Right? The ROI, right? Okay, we working. We working. We working. I know we crossing the 3-hour mark, so I know there's a part where you start getting a little crazy. Mind your business. Spend time paying attention, balancing your interests so you can earn a living. You want to save money or you want to save your breath?
When you read these books like you supposed to, they gonna electrify your entire life.
We have figured out bioelectricity and completed the dream of Dr. Sabi and Robert O. Becker. Join us. Ooh-wee, hold up. Man, I was about to pass this. I was about to pass this. There's so much stuff in this book. Man, I was about to pass something crazy. Okay, hold up. Hey. Hold up. We gotta go back. Oh man, hold up. Let me see something. Yep. Let me see something. Okay, hold up. Ooh, this is kind of crazy. Let me see if I can find this for you. Because this would be tough. Let me see if I can find something. Tag, I don't have it in this computer. I don't have it in this computer, man. Well, if you have this book, man, we have this book. Not the new book, but this book. You a wild netcher. Right? This is from our Christ series, right? The Christ crucifixion book. Let me see if it comes up this way. Nope. Okay, yeah, it's not in this computer. But if you don't have this book, this is the book that we released right after Jamie Foxx situation with the brain bleed, and we was having this conversation. Now, see, this is how you know, right? This is how you know we've been coming around to this conversation. Look at this. Right? See that? Y'all can see that. Right? Yeah. You have a structure in your brain. You have a structure in your brain that looks just like the ankh. Right? You have a structure in your brain that looks just like the ankh. Now, why this structure is important to this conversation is because, remember, those arteries from the top of the aorta, right? This is where they go, right? They go to the ankh or the circle of Willis, right? You can call it the ankh or the circle of Willis, whatever you're comfortable with, right? Now, that's on page 10 and 11 in this book, right? So we had this whole conversation, and we went, we discussed the whole two main pairs of arteries, internal carotid and the vertebral arteries, and blah, 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 right? Now, from here, we discussed the vertebrae, the spine, right? And then we came around to discussing this, right? To discussing this. See that? Right? And how that structure is also located in your brain. How that structure is also located in your brain, right? So, here. So we discussed them separately in this book, right? Precursor, warming it up. Precursor, warming it up. Now, here in the new book, we discussed them together, which is where it gets a little more interesting. Hold up. Man, what just happened? What just happened? What was that? On a blood clotting this. Okay, here we go. Bam. So you can see here, it's just the shadow of it because they're showing you the overlay of the circle of Willis or the ankh onto the body of your cranial nerves, right? This is the body of your cranial nerves here. right? The body of your cranial nerves. You have the ankh laid on top of that, right? So you have Amun, the hidden one, right? You see that? You literally have the depiction of the god holding the ankh is in the brain. So you have the circle of Willis tied into the cranial body. That for me, that was jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring. Like my heart almost stopped when I first seen like the hidden one, the face of a moon, that shape in the brain with the ankh, and then the ankh on top. That was crazy for me. That was crazy for me. Yeah, that was crazy for me. That was crazy for me. So yeah, that's a whole thing, right? That is a whole universe, right? So let's walk through some of this anatomy a little bit, right? Let's walk through some of this anatomy, right? So the glymphatic system is an organized brain-wide lymphatic system, right? It's a combination of cerebral spinal fluid and lymphatic fluid, right? Now, excuse me. The cervical lymphatic pathways drain lymph from the head and neck into the central lymphatic system through the well-organized lymph nodes and lymphatic trunks that ultimately connect to the major lymphatic ducts and enter the venous circulation. Okay, so what? The lymphatic system in your brain drains through your neck, and right about in here is where it goes back into the circulatory system and starts the cycle again. Okay. So if you some of y'all new folks, y'all may not remember these conversations, but for the family that's been around for a minute, right? Remember when we had our conversations on the lymphatic immunity book, right? The lymphatic immunity book. And we talked about, we used the mnemonic device of a water mill, right? How water circulates through the body, right? A water mill. Even in the back of the book, right? The back of the book. Water is absorbed in the digestive system, passed into the blood to replenish the plasma. The plasma is filtered through the capillaries to become interstitial fluid. The interstitial fluid is then filtered through the lymphatic capillaries into the lymphatic vessels, then lymph nodes, where it is strained and analyzed. After the water is strained and analyzed, it empties back into the blood through the subclavian veins, right? The subclavian, that's up here. This is the internal water cycle simplified. This is the main reason we push the monthly detox kit and and the 1 cup of water per hour, right? Every 60 minutes, have a cup of water. The average human would die without the movement of lymph in 24 hours. You don't just drink water and sweat or pee. The water in your body is processed. You have a very unique and thorough filter system. Literally, I'm reading off the back of the book, right? That's the lymphatic immunity book, right? So we talked about this concept of the water cycling through your system, cycling through your tissues, right? Cycling through your system, you know, going through the digestive system, into the circulatory system, through the fascia and the tissues, interstitial fluid, cells, back out of the cells, through the lymphatic system, cycling around, right? Through the cerebral spinal fluid, the pleurisy fluid, because it has to replenish and change all of the different waters you have in your body, right? So you have fluid in your ear, in your eye, right? All of these places have their own type of conditioned water, right? So the fluid in your eye has to drain and be replaced and cleaned constantly in all of these different places, right? Lymphatic immunity. Right? The lymphatic immunity is what right? But again, we need to know, we need to know the body parts. We need to know some of the anatomy, right? So we working right now. This is a workout. That's why we ain't stopped when the children came home. And I was exercising and I was like, yeah, let me get changed. I was like, you know what? Nah. We going on the live stream with the dirty sweats of nah, man. These people got to stop listening to these videos and then smoking weed and going to sleep. You got to watch these videos and get busy with the get busy. Yeah, listen, I'm not messing around. I'm gonna show y'all my before and after picture. My before and after picture looks so sad. Look, it'll make you cry. My before picture. It'll make you cry. If you see that before, when you see my before picture, it's gonna make you cry. You're gonna look like it's gonna look like I need a hug. You're gonna want a hug. You're gonna want to hug, Doc. Like Doc, you need something? You all right over? I did need something. You know what I'm saying? I was in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Single dad up in here with these babies. Leg is not, leg fractured. I was in trouble. And I like to eat stuff. Like most of us, you know what I'm saying? Like most of us. So when you see that before picture, just know I'm over here getting busy. By the time it's really full-blown summertime, excuse is going to be out the window. Just let you know. Excuse is going to be out the window. I'm going to need the ladies to send in them videos. Yeah, we about to have Instagram popping. I just need to see them videos with the ladies with the... Yeah, I'm going to need to see more than just M4 doing his push-ups. I'm going to need to see more than just M4 doing his push-ups. Just letting y'all know in advance. So, yeah, y'all need to get busy with the get busy. Y'all need to start getting busy with the get busy with the get busy. All right, so the cervical lymphatic pathways drain lymph from the head and neck into the central lymphatic system through well-organized deep lymph nodes and lymphatic trunks that ultimately connect to major lymphatic ducts and enter the venous circulation. All lymphatic vessels from the head and neck drain directly or indirectly into cervical lymph nodes. These deep cervical lymph nodes form a vertical chain along the internal jugular vein. Okay, full stop, right? Remember, you have about 700 lymph nodes. Where do you have nodes? Nodes are in music. God is music. Yeah, you see nodes. But these nodes in your body are filter stations. These are filters, right? These are filters. Each one of these nodes, not only can you think of it like a filter, right? You could also think of it like, where is the worst cops in America? South Carolina. Woo! South Carolina is disgusting. When I tell you South Carolina is disgusting. The cops in South Carolina are the worst when it comes to trying to give you a speeding ticket. So if you go up and down the interstate, when you get to South Carolina, immediately get to, it don't matter what the flow of traffic is. Forget about the flow of traffic. Because the cops in South Carolina, they like to use the flow of traffic against you. You know, like it's legal for you most times to like be within the flow of traffic. So if everybody doing 70, you should kind of be doing 70, even if it says 65 or 55, whatever. Because if you're too slow, you're like in the way of the flow of traffic. Nah, they will use that against you. You in the flow of traffic, everybody doing 65, you know, you doing 65, they're going to look at them plates and see your plates is not from South Carolina and they pulling you. Boo! Yeah, they trying to get some of that out-of-state money to become interstate money. Yeah, so they like to pull over folk like that. Yeah, so think of these nodes as the spots where the cops be hiding with the radar guns and all that along the way. Because each one of these nodes is loaded with T cells and B cells and jump out boys. And the reason they're there, even memory T cells, and the reason why each one of these nodes is like a hub for immune cells is because they want to be able to detect any infection, right? So each node is responsible for the stretch of lymphatic system before it. So anything that comes into it automatically sets alarm. Like if any virus, bacteria, whatever drops into the lymph node, then it knows you got an infection somewhere in that stretch before it, right? But any toxic chemicals or whatever, anything, your lymph node is like, the authorities is there and they waiting to analyze and run fingerprints and all that so they can find criminals and, foreign agents, and the ICE is there to deport, all that's going on. All that's going on. So the lymph nodes are more than filtration centers. They're active centers where you have analyzing going on. You have the information being routed back to the brain and the nervous system, back to other areas in the body, back to the kidney, back to the spleen, back to the bone marrow. The bone marrow has to produce more immune cells. If the alarm gotta go off and they need the army to move in, right? So these lymph nodes are important, right? These lymph nodes are important, right? All right. So you have cervical nodes that form a chain along the internal jugular vein within the carotid sheath. The deep cervical chain receives lymph from the superficial lymph nodes in various anatomical regions of the head and neck. The efferent vessels of the deep cervical nodes converge to form the right and left jugular lymphatic trunks. These trunks act as major channels collecting lymph from the cervical region. On the left side, the jugular vein lymphatic trunk typically joins the thoracic duct at the root of the neck. The thoracic duct then empties the lymph into the venous system at the junction of the left internal jugular vein and subclavian veins, known as the lymphovenous junction. On the right side, the jugular lymphatic trunk drains into the right lymphatic duct. The right lymphatic duct empties into the right lymphatic duct empties lymph into the venous system near the junction of the right internal jugular and subclavian veins. The lymph from the cervical lymphatics ultimately re-enters the bloodstream via these large veins. This process maintains fluid balance by returning excess interstitial fluid collected by the lymphatic system back into the circulatory system. That's how you replenish the plasma, right? The water portion of your blood, right? The fluid portion. This conversion is literally making the Clean Abs Facial book an instant super classic. So make sure you have that. The blood and lymph that power as well as clean the brain meet via the jugular. From there, they get recycled into the heart via the superior vena cava into the right atrium, right? So everybody that says their prayers with us, right? You should know we give thanks for smooth sailing upstream through the valley of death, through the superior vena cava into the right atrium, right? Okay. All right. Okay. I think we made some headway for today.